Hello everyone, Martin Chagnon, Director of Sales at NaviPro. I'd like to welcome you to this podcast series dedicated to the 9th edition of the IT Trend. As every year, the NaviPro Group published last June its annual report on the state of the IT market in Canada. Throughout this series, we'll analyze the key statistics and take a closer look at where the market stands 6 months after the report's release. Which trends, challenges, and priorities have evolved since then. For this podcast on cloud, I am joined by Christopher Reynolds, Partner and Corporate Account Canada at OVH Cloud. Chris, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Good. So we'll start it off with a first quick question. In 2025, are we still talking about a migration to the cloud, or is the focus now more on optimization and workload distribution across environments?
So, great question, Martin. I think when you say to me, migrate to the cloud, you're talking about an optimization anyway, automatically. And just to be clear, when we talk about the advantages of the cloud, we're taking away the responsibility of providing a controlled environment in the client's location or at a data center and ensuring that the hardware is operational 24/7, 365. Okay, so we're removing all of that responsibility for them and putting all of that in the cloud. Plus, add the flexibility of there's an enormous amount of compute and storage on demand, and the reasons for going to the cloud are compelling. Okay, so migration to the cloud is something that's happening, a lot of interest. The underlying point is a migration to the cloud should always provide business value. So there are different ways to move to the cloud. You can migrate to a cloud-native environment, or you can do something simple like a lift and shift. It all depends on, well, there's a third way as well. I mean, you can do a lift and shift initially and then modernize when you're already in the cloud. Different companies, though, are at different stages in their digital transformation, and this dictates where they are in their cloud utilization strategy. So to answer your question, we're seeing lots of companies with initiatives about moving to the cloud and modernizing their cloud infrastructure, but it all depends on where the company is. So number one, they could be starting the move, they could be in the process of the move and optimizing it, or they could be making final optimizations within the cloud and full modernization.
Okay, so I guess what I'm taking away from this is optimization is always a goal, but, depending on where they are in their digital transformation, it may happen sooner or later.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they need to consider what they're doing before they make the move initially, right? But that's where companies like NaviPro come in. If you come to me and ask me for cloud services, I'm always going to sell you OVH Cloud. NaviPro are agnostic, so you guys can talk about the best solutions that are available out there.
Cool. Thanks for that answer, Chris. Second question, Chris. 85% of Canadian companies report using a cloud solution, and their top cloud investment priorities are as follow. 63% for data backup, 57% in cybersecurity services, and 41% in big data. What I'd like to know is, from your perspective, is that consistent with what you're seeing among your clients?
So yes, we do see a lot of requests for backup in the market. So for backup, a cloud solution is perfect. Even if you maintain your production services on premises, you can use a 3-2-1 backup strategy, right? 3 versions, 2 different media, and 1 offsite. Similarly, DR fits into that sort of strategy. We do see clients reaching out to use the cloud for disaster recovery as well. So if you've got cloud prod in one location, use DR in another location. That as well is something that we're seeing quite a lot of. In terms of cybersecurity, OVH Cloud is not a big player in the cybersecurity space. We're not going to try and compete with the Fortinets and the Palo Altos of this world. But we understand that the cybersecurity companies do leverage cloud quite a lot, mainly for the huge compute resources and to do their detecting and isolating of anomalies and unusual patterns to stop attacks, etc., etc. So in terms of big data, I think it's been there for a long time, right? People have been saving data, and people are realizing through business intelligence software that they can draw out useful analysis from that big data. I think that's been driven to the next level by AI recently, because the large language models trained on big data, on enormous data, indeed scraping data off the internet as well, that is exactly the model for AI. So whether within your the Portrait TE, people were talking about big data being big data for AI or just big data for business intelligence, I think we're going to see a growth there as well. So I don't doubt that big data is going to become more and more important as we move forward.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you. I think it's it came in at the third place this year. We might see that that position coming up closer to the first and second place.
I agree with you totally.
Third question, considering that 36% of companies are motivated to adopt cloud solution to reduce cost and 34% to modernize their IT, how does OVH Cloud support organization in modernizing their IT environment without compromising performance?
Okay. So modernization of environments and cost reduction of environments can all be achieved with cloud implementations. Okay, it's clear. But unfortunately, like every complex solution, one size doesn't fit all. So cloud does not always mean cost savings. Cloud can achieve significant business value when environments are modernized in the cloud as well. So the focus here, I think, is, you mentioned how would OVH Cloud accompany clients. Really, we accompany clients by really trying to understand what the business objectives are. So you would come to me, I'm a cloud sales guy, I want to sell cloud. What a company really should be focusing on initially, and what I would always press them to have the answers for, is that what is the underlying requirement for coming to cloud? What's the drivers behind it? What are you trying to achieve? Where's the business value? Again, these sort of things are usually more done through consultancy companies like NoviPro, who can offer those sort of services. But we can do that a little bit as well, and we always try to. So ideally, a client should understand what their driver to go to cloud is in the first instance, and then that's those sort of circumstances we can advise them. So in terms of if you want to do a modernization, or if you want to use monolithic environments and in the cloud, we can help you with both sort of scenario. What's your 3 and 5 year plan? Where are you going to be in next year, or this time in 2 years or 5 years time? But all of those things need to be taken into account so we can offer the best solution. I would always recommend somebody getting an agnostic evaluation of their of different options once they understand what their requirements are.
Okay. So I have a sub question to that. Many companies still fear the hidden cost of the cloud. From your perspective, how can they better anticipate and manage those hidden costs?
I think again, it's all down to making good choices. We within OVH Cloud, the way we do things, we will always publish our prices, and we always, since the inception of the company, we've attempted to offer value for money. So the best performance for the best price. It's always part of our DNA. So with OVH Cloud, you don't get anything like additional bandwidth charges. The bandwidth is always included in every single one of our products. It doesn't matter where you go within the OVH Cloud environment, bandwidth is included. You don't get charged for API calls either. So if you want to interact with your infrastructure through APIs, again, that's not a problem. There's no charges associated with it. You don't get charged for putting data and getting data on your storage. All included. All you get charged for is the amount of data that you have in the storage for the period of time that you have it there. I would always say for companies, again, that are looking to go into the cloud, you've got to be careful. You've got to do your analysis properly. You've got to make sure you have a vision of all the costs. because it's not necessarily the price that appears on the offer.
Yeah, I think the items that you've mentioned about the bandwidth being included, the ability to put data on the storage and take it out without additional cost, the API calls that do not get charged are often the hidden costs that customers are seeing. I'll say with other cloud providers, that OVH Cloud is providing some predictability that is way better for customer coming over to your environment.
Working with companies like NoviPro, of course, you guys know all of the cloud providers and you work with them all. So people just need to speak to you a little bit more often.
I agree.
We thought you might.
So, last question, Chris. Since the IT landscape survey was conducted before the recent development involving the United States, so it was done in early January. At the time, data privacy wasn't cited as a major concern. Do you feel that has changed since the beginning of the year?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, but absolutely. I think if you did your survey in February this year, you would have had one more priority on your list. So what we see, and again, exactly to your point, and I think it's for the geopolitical instability, if I may use that phrase, thanks to the new incumbent in the White House, we're seeing a lot more people who are interested in sovereignty. Again, just because they're interested in sovereignty doesn't mean they're going to rip and replace a multi-million-dollar AWS installation. But what it does mean is people are reflecting a little bit more before they're making their decisions. And people are looking a little bit more at diversifying their infrastructure. If you look at it, I believe, and depending which analyst you talk about, the big three own between 65% and 80% of the cloud infrastructure globally. That's a lot of eggs in not very many baskets. And I think from a public sector perspective, that's been noted and being actioned pretty aggressively as we speak. I mean, I've certainly seen things at the Canadian government. I think Mark Carney himself has already talked about that. So sovereignty, yes, all of a sudden is becoming something that people are paying attention to and they're asking questions about.
Good. So I guess you've sort of answered my sub question already, because I was going to ask you if you noticed a growing awareness among business leaders regarding data localization and protection. So I guess, the data sovereignty that you're bringing up sort of relates to that.
Yeah, that's true. So business leaders, yes, absolutely. Is it changing their strategy? Not always. So I think it depends on the type of data. It depends on what they're trying to do with the data. So if you've got a whole load of anonymized data and you need to use specific solutions that are available in the big three, use it. And the price is right, obviously. But I think if the data is sensitive, people are being much more careful about that data.
Okay. Well, that sums up this podcast with you, Chris. So I thank you for participating. I thank OVH Cloud for being part of this. And I wish you a great day.
Thank you very much, Martin. Have a great day yourself, sir.